So welcome everyone here. This is the Mogul Call. This is a weekly call for the members of milliondollar-sellers.com, a group of Amazon sellers all selling $1 million plus. We're a group on Facebook, and we have sort of meetups in person around the world as well. And our guest for this week is Neville Wright. Neville is most famous for the real estate stuff you do, and also for founding and selling Kiddicare, which was a large nursery business in the UK back in 2010. So I came across Neville. I saw him speaking at a property event a few years ago, and I read his book recently. So I reached out to see if Neville would do the call, and he kindly agreed. So I guess one of the things that's most unique about you is that you really did start in business with absolutely nothing. You started from a very you had a lot of struggles, and started from a very difficult stage. So could you tell us a little bit about your start in business and how you got started?
Yes, we started in 1974, and there was myself. I was 24 years old. My wife, she was the same age, and we had a child of 3 years old. I'd had 17 jobs, and I realized that I was never going to make it unless I worked on my own, because I was dyslexic, I had ADHD, I couldn't settle, and I was put down as a child in school because I couldn't spell, I couldn't read or write, and this carried on into the job. As soon as people found out in those days that you couldn't read or write, you was classed as stupid, and then you soon went to the next job. Luckily, you could leave a job in the morning, get one in the afternoon, but it all changed in 1974. There was a recession, and there was no jobs. So we was living in a 10-foot caravan, and I was on assistance on what they call on the dole, on welfare. So this went on for 3 months, and I had an altercation. I was 24 years old, hot-headed. We had an altercation over £2 that I needed extra to feed the family. And they told me to have another child, which wasn't right in my eyes. It was immoral in my eyes that somebody should say, if you want another £2, we will give you it, but you have to have another child first. And so the altercation was, I can't feed the one I've got, so how can I have another one? So with that, I told them where they could put the dole money, and I got on my bike and I cried on the way home, thinking I'd let my wife down. But luckily, I stopped to dry my eyes just before I got home, and something hit me. I decided to burn my bridges. I decided to become responsible and never go cap in hand to anyone ever again. Well, that was a big thing, because I hadn't got any money. I hadn't got enough money to buy the next meal. So that was quite a thing, and quite a determination, and that was it. So that day I bought with 37 pence a piece of cloth, because somebody had told me. I knew a window cleaner years before that, and there's this cloth called scrim. I went and I bought this 37 pence, and the next day I borrowed my father's ladder. The next day I went and knocked on the next door neighbour's door, and they slammed the door in my face, and I never realised why, but I was living in the caravan that they could see in the back garden of a house. And so that's how it all started. And I didn't have a window cleaning round. I had a property maintenance business, because I didn't realise this that day, but over 2 weeks, people would ask me to do different jobs, clean the gutters, mend the fence, whatever. And because of my overwhelming desire to look after myself and not go back on the dole queue, the answer was yes. And that's where the title of the book comes from. The answer is yes. Now, what is the question? And so I was in the property maintenance business, and this grew with our determination and us working together. It grew over 3 years, and we employed 6 people by that time. Then the shop came along as an office for Marilyn, my wife, to do the bookwork in, because we was established now as kind of small builder. And then she started selling secondhand prams and secondhand clothes, which went on for about 3 or 4 months before people started to see, reps started to come into our area, because they'd passed the door and saw it as a nursery shop, and it started to grow. And over the next 25 years, it just grew and grew and grew. And we was having to, we knew nothing about the nursery business, but there was 2,200 other sellers, other shops. So we could learn from them. And that's how we went on. And after the first year, we realized we wasn't retailers at all. We'd never made any money. And it was like, that was it. We was going to pack it up. But a rep come in and told us we're just on the verge of making it. And we took notice of him and took a few mentoring tips off him. And within 10 minutes, we were back in business mentally. And we made a success of that 2 up, 2 down terrace house shop. So much so that that was 1977 that we started in the shop. 1978 we was going to get rid of it. By 1980 we was really established in Peterborough, and we couldn't get any more people in that shop. So we sold it as a going concern and rented another shop, a brand new one, which was 5 times the size. So that's how we did it. We just kept investing money back into the business, into stock, because without stock, you haven't got any sales. And we was never afraid to invest everything we got. Because remember, we lived in a 10-foot caravan. And if you can survive in a 10-foot caravan over the winter of 73, 74, you can survive anywhere. And so therefore, possessions to us didn't mean anything. It was the business that fed us, and we had to keep feeding the business. I describe it as a golden goose. Feed the golden goose and it will lay those eggs every day. Starve it and take the money for yourself, and it will die.
I love it.
Ramble. Sorry, I ramble.
Yeah, the one thing I really wanted to focus on in this call is just to talk a lot about Kiddicare and how you made it into the success that it was.
Okay.
Because it's easy to see how you and Marilyn, your wife, you were so motivated. You'd been right at the bottom, and you guys just really wanted to succeed. You had your goals. You were willing to work so hard. How did you go about, and what did you learn about taking on staff, building a team, so you could find people that would really support you and would do the extra and would take good care of the customers? What did you learn about building a team, and what worked best for you in those years?
The first person who came into the shop the day before I opened it in 1977 opened the door, and I said naively, "We're not open, we're opening tomorrow." And he said, "We're just going down to the maternity unit. I want a present for my granddaughter, my daughter, you know." And we let him in, and I hadn't got any money in the till, and it come to £2.30, and he gave me £3. I hadn't got any change, so I gave him £1 back. That was 15% discount. I just said, "Oh, give us £2, that's it." And he was amazed. In those days, nobody gave discount. He was amazed at it, and he thanked me so much, and it made me happy. And that's from that day, I became a discounter. Not knowing, all I knew was that customer was pleased. And I'd help the customer by going an extra mile, by letting him come in. And that set the scene for the next 30 odd years. And it's true today as it was true in those days. So that was one thing. As for staff, when I realized, when I read this Italian saying, "The fish stinks from the head down," meaning that if you are the boss, you are responsible for everything. Doesn't matter what happens, what your staff do, you are responsible. So as soon as I got that, as soon as I understood that, and this was quite a while, a few years after, when I got a few staff, and I was always blaming them for this and blaming them for that. And I realized I was the one that was responsible. I was the one that carried the cannon. If anybody did anything wrong, it was me. I wasn't training them properly. So we put a training program in, and this was a 2-year training program, because that's how long it takes to understand how nursery products, how they all work, the seasons of the nursery products, and the colours and the clothing and all that kind of stuff, the accessories, all change. So you need 2 years. So we put this program in to train people. And another thing that motivated me was people coming in, customers coming in, knowing more than the salespeople. So you, nowadays especially, you can go online and you can learn everything there is to know about a coffee machine or whatever, and you can go into the shop and you know more than the salesperson. And that was never, ever going to be an issue after 2 or 3 people came in and they knew more than we did. So the training was vitally important, and that we knew more than the customer. So we was able to help, and the customer realized that. And the more it went on and the more customers knew about product, they was amazed that they didn't know everything. And so customer service was the key. So this is how we built the business. And I would say most people don't want to be a sales assistant in a shop, because it's an in-between job, or it's when you're looking for something better. But if you could get the staff to be proud of what they were doing, they would stay. So out of every 20 people we had, probably 1 would stay. So the quicker we got them through, the better it was for the customer, because we whittled it down from 20 to 1, and this was going on all the time. It was. And I used to stand away from the door with new people and go, you see the customers coming in, do you know what they're here for? And they go, well, to buy nursery products. I say, no, they're after one thing. All those people are coming through that door are only after one thing. And they go, what is it? And they go, a salesperson to sell them what they need. And when they realized that a salesperson was a professional person that was going to sell to the customer what they needed and what was the best for the customer, they didn't run away from the customer, because people come in and go, you're supposed to say, can I help you? And they say, no, thanks, I'm just looking. That never happened. That was drilled out of them. So the customer would be helped. And that was great for the customer and great for us. But the other thing I used to say to the people when they first started, if I could find them, if I bumped into them on the first day, I'd say, welcome to Kiddicare. And just remember, when you leave, and they go, I've only been here an hour. I don't want, no, I say, but this is life. When you do leave, take with you more knowledge than you've got at the moment. And they go, oh, I thought he was going to sack me. No, I don't want you to go. But if you do go, and that's inevitable that people do, take more knowledge with you than when you come today. And they go, wow, I've never heard that before. So I've got a boss now who's encouraging me to learn and saying, take it away with you. But actually, I'm quite happy in learning. And so that was another thing. Another great thing was most people came to Kiddicare for any job, and it was usually in the warehouse or on the shop floor. Within weeks of those being there, the manager used to recognize, or you talk to them, and the person who was selling the prams probably hated it and wanted to be in the photography studio, or the person who was loading lorries or unloading lorries wanted to be in the buying department because they had a flair. They wanted, or on the service department, either mending pushchairs or on the service department on the telephones. So those people had an opportunity. Virtually everybody from the accounts department started on the shop floor. Most people who started on the shop floor, who was in the photography studio or the video studio, it was just a passion of theirs, a hobby that they could turn into a job. And so they were free to express their own individuality. So I think that was a few keys, a few things that got us such good staff. And people used to come in, and people I would speak to go, all these people around here, are they on commission? And they go, no. Well, they act as though they are. You know, their enthusiasm, their knowledge for the product was telling people they must be on commission. Well, there wasn't. They were just passionate about the product and the people. So that's the people side. That's the staff side, building them to their not their weaknesses, but what their strengths, building on
their full potential.
Never mind about their weaknesses. Forget about. Don't try and train somebody that doesn't want to be trained on photography when actually they like unloading lorries. Concentrate on their strengths. This is where you get the best out of people. And then the building, the ambience of the place. Well, of course, you're not into bricks and mortar on there, but we was. So people had travelled for an hour, 2 hours. They wanted one thing. They were pregnant. They wanted one thing, and that's a toilet. So, you know, we had the cleanest toilets in the world, better than they had at home, and we had a full-time cleaner just cleaning their toilets. And it was like, she was essential. I praised her every single day that we was there, because without her keeping them spotless, people were, wow, I can't believe, you know, how immaculate your toilets are. And it's like, well, you know, you've come into the shop, and then they're not complaining about the dirty toilets, so they're more likely to buy. Why shouldn't they buy from us? You know, and then we had a restaurant, you know, and then when people said, I think I'll look around. Oh no, not in our shop. No. Once they'd had all the demonstrations, and they said, we want to have a look around, and they go, what do you mean? You look around for what? Well, look around, see if I can get it cheaper or whatever. I go, well, there's a bank of computers. We've got, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 computers with stools, and you go and have a coffee. We've programmed that with 40 of the leading nursery retailers. Go and look online. It's effortless. Let us know if there's anything that you've seen on there that you haven't seen in the shop. Let us know if there's any specials. And they go, you must be joking. You are giving us all of your competitors with all of their price, and it's real time. It's like, that's it. And they go, I'm not even going to buy. So many people said, I'm not going to bother buy it. I'll buy it from here. So it's
one of the things you do well is you're always trying to think about what's most important to a customer, and what would the main reasons a customer would have not to buy. Quite a few are in the book, but I didn't know. I don't think that one was. I hadn't heard about the one of the computers in the store.
No, I didn't put everything down in the book, I don't think. But I'm just remembering things. Every conversation I have, I kind of remember something else. And when I left, there was 100,000 customer reviews. There was. Can you imagine?
A lot of reviews. Amazon sellers, we're pretty fond of reviews, yeah. So,
you know, it was like phenomenal. And we used to take whatever it was, we looked at the review, and then we'd got people looking at reviews all day long. And if there was a problem and they put, this is a shit product or whatever, and I didn't get very good service and this and this and this, they used to get a telephone call or an email going, what was the problem? And they go, the bus broke down. They go, what? Well, I got there late and the shop was shut. So it's a shit shop. And it's like, yeah. And some of them actually did have genuine things, and we put those things right. And we say, before you put a review on, didn't you ever think of ringing us? And they go, no, because I didn't think you'd do anything about it. The other thing was, this is another customer service thing. We used to have a telephone system, and it used to go, hi, you've come through to Kiddicare service department. You've got a 37-minute wait because all the lines are busy. We had 10 girls on the phone. They go, but, oh, it could be a 5-minute wait or a 60-minute wait. And they go, but if you don't want to wait, put the phone down now, call back in 20 minutes, and you'll be at the front of the queue. That was a great telephone system, which they pulled out, I think, the week that we left, and they diverted it up north somewhere to a call center that they didn't have a clue what they was talking about. But on top of that, at 5 o'clock in the evenings, 2 of the staff were put on to miss phone calls, and you could see the ones that had put the phone down and had never rang back. They might have had to go to the shops or go to work, or they might have had to change the baby, or they had a visitor, who knows. 5 o'clock, they'd ring and they'd go, hi, you rang at 2:37 this afternoon, or whatever time it was. And I'm Jane from Kiddicare. How can I help you? And they'd go, I don't believe it. I was going to bawl you out. I'd got a problem. But I haven't now, because I appreciate you bringing me back. Now, if you could let me know, what do I do? Right. On top of that, we used to get emails, and it was like, I've got a problem. What's your problem? I've got a pushchair. What kind of pushchair? Well, it's a McLaren. What kind of McLaren? Right. Okay. That couldn't go on as we was building up. We did a program. It was like, you got a problem, fill the form in. What's your name and address? Okay. We know what you bought. Just tell us the problem. My law, well, I've got a lot of laws I had for the customer. The law on that one was no more than 3 emails. If you're doing more than 3 emails, you've gone over the limit. We should get the person sorted within 3 emails. So it was things like that was constantly being put into the file of customer service. And it's exactly the same with the warehouse. The product, if the products come back, there is examined why, And in the early days, I'm talking about 1999 when we launched. People would send the pram back, and you say, "Why send it back?" And they'd say, "Well, it's green." I go, "Well, that's what you ordered." And they go, "On my screen, it's blue." So their screens wasn't compatible. There was a different color to ours, and it was like, those were the problems that we faced, which were great. I loved problems, because you get a problem, you can put it right. So in the blurb we put it right about, look at this is blue and it's not green or whatever, and we got over that. We got over problems with the carriers, because in 1999, there was virtually no carriers that would take a cot or a pram or a car seat from us to a customer's door. It was business to business, but it wasn't business to customer. So we had to get over that, because they didn't know how to deliver the products. We was getting so many damages with carriers. I remember once, they sent a small van every day, some carriers, and then they sent a wagon, because we had like 50 parcels. They sent a wagon that had been carrying drums of oil. The only way I know about it, 3 days later, people was going to sue us for getting oil on their clothes from the packages. So we went through horrendous learning curves because the industry wasn't ready, and the packaging was 1-ply boxes or 2-ply boxes and used to disintegrate. And we went through horrendous learning curves. But every time we asked the manufacturers to put 3-ply box and more packaging in to stop the prams getting broken, they'd say, you are the only people who are complaining. We're fed up with you. Nobody else complains. And I used to go, great. And they would go, what do you mean great? You're the only one that's complaining. I go, so we are in front of everybody else. They are going to be complaining when they launch their websites. But
this is when online was just kicking off, right? So you were starting to send a lot of orders out, but they were getting damaged, and so you were going back to the suppliers.
Yes.
You asked them for like stronger boxes and put everything into one box, but the suppliers didn't quite get this yet. It was good because the next thing I wanted to move on to actually was, I think as e-commerce sellers, we have quite a lot of distance from the customers, which you didn't have, because you had one shop, massive shop, and you lived either at the shop or right next to it. So you were constantly getting feedback from customers and from your staff. Whereas a lot of us don't even work, our staff work in other countries sometimes. So we can get a bit more kind of separated. But one thing that hasn't really changed is like, all of us have to deal with suppliers, and so typically we're dealing with like reps from factories in China, or from, some of us have factories in the States or the UK. And so we have to build these relationships with different reps, with our factories, negotiating terms. Just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you went building relationship with reps, how you negotiated the best prices and the best terms.
Right, okay. We were so busy, and well, there's two things. There was the shop, and when we went online, we had to replicate what we was doing in the shop as online. So we had to marry the customer, but that's, maybe we'll move on to that later. But with the reps, they used to come into the shop. We was very busy. And I used to say, well, we can't see you at the moment, but we can see you tonight. So a lot of them were touring reps, and they would stop in Peterborough for the night. Well, once I'd heard that, by this time, by 2000, we was living in what you'd class as a mansion. So it was a fabulous place, and reps used to come and stop with us instead of in a hotel. It was a lot better. And so therefore we looked after the reps. We became friends. We still are today with a lot of them. So we would look after them and understand what was going on. And secretly, I had a goal that each of our reps would become their the number one salesperson for their organization. So Britax or McLaren or whoever it was, or Silver Cross, our rep would be Silver Cross's best rep, top rep. So that was a secret goal of mine, that we would sell more of their product than anyone else, okay? They didn't know this. So we had, when you're saying about negotiating, one of the easiest ways of negotiating is to pay your bills. And new companies would come in and you go, what's your terms? And they go, 30 days, but we could stretch it maybe to 60. And go, no, that's fine. How much will you give us in 30 days? And they go 2.5%. What about 14 days? And they go, I could give you 5%. And then we'd say, what about a day? And they go, what do you mean? And go, well, we pay in a day. They go, nobody pays in a day. We pay in a day, because if we pay in a day and get 10% off, we're going to save ourselves like £200,000 in a year. So therefore, actually, we don't have to do anything, but just buy well and get the discount. Then if you pay in a day, and when that rep comes to the end of the season, and sometimes it was 2 or 3 times a year they change their range, who would they come to for surplus stock to get rid of it? The person who pays in a day. Then we get 50% off for surplus stock, or stock that's finished, end of lines. So we became the end of line people to go to. So all of a sudden we was getting 50, 60, 70% off end of lines, and there could be thousands of pushchairs the end of that line, and they needed the money. So now we could do stuff at trade price and make far bigger margins. So that was a win-win situation. So that was one way that we did it, proving ourselves, to be good for their company.
So you and your wife worked extremely hard on this business over like several decades, right? And
Yes.
In the book, you talk about like the cost that it took working those kind of extreme hours with so much pressure and so much responsibility. You had like sort of back and other problems, and then some mental stuff where like you couldn't finish sentences and stuff.
I lost all my words. Yeah.
So do you think in hindsight that you would, if you were to do it again, you would go about it differently so you didn't have to work so many hours? Or do you think that was the only way, that was your kind of secret sauce that made it work, the fact that you were so involved and so hands-on?
I always say to people who go, I think I want to get into this business or that business because if I get into property or whatever it is, that I'll make a lot of money. And they go, no, you won't. Money is a byproduct of doing the whatever you love and doing that right. Sometimes you have to do something you don't love because you don't know what you love, and you have to learn to love it, but you need to be in it to win it. So I forgot a question.
We're talking about because the cost of working so hard on a business, in your health and your family, and I know you had like back pain and stuff like that.
20 years. I used to be working for a madman, and that was me. And it was, there was part of this fear of failure that drove us. So you can't get rid of that. And then there is excitement, because you always want to get over the next hurdle all the time. So that was excitement. So there's fear and excitement. And then it came on to, I'm responsible. So fear, excitement, and responsibility. Now I have 20 people working for me. Now I have 50 people working. Now it wasn't 50 people, it's 50 families. Then, there's that responsibility. So you're on, although it looks like you're on a treadmill, and it can be, but it was so exciting. And it's a job, there's this excitement, but when something happens, like losing all of my vocabulary, and then it took years and years to get it back. And I had such super people around me who would say, they knew what I wanted to say, and they used to tell people what I wanted to say to them. And it was just amazing. I could point to something, and my manager of the warehouse, she would say, oh, you want this and this and that doing, and yeah, that's fine. I couldn't finish my sentences. I had one of my head of security would come round with me all the time, and he knew what I wanted, and he would be talking to other people. It's just crazy. And then I had my back problem, and I ended up, we used to go to restaurants every night with reps in the 80s and 90s, but it got to a point where 1993, I laid on the floor in a restaurant because I couldn't do any other. And then I never went to restaurants for about 10 years after that. But I was surrounded with people who had got this a similar mindset. Most of them didn't want the responsibility of being self-employed and looking after all the crazy stuff with the red tape and everything that goes along with it. But there was willing to help because they knew we needed each other. So they needed me, and that was very, very good for me, and I needed them. And that was another thing. We're all cogs in the wheel, no one better than anybody else. And once you realize this, you seem to slot together. And once and you have to appreciate each other for what your talents are, and help out. So that was it. And so this problem that I had increased as the problems came along with in 2007, 2008, the recession. It was just crazy because we were doing so much business, but then the business completely altered overnight. And we were selling 15, 16, 1,700 pound prams. And then the next day, and our warehouse was full of them, like a couple of £3 million worth of them. And the next day it was like 399 pound prams. And that's how the business had changed. People were scared of spending too much money. So we had to react very quickly, and we had to bring our own brands in because people was dropping like flies, and they was blaming it onto the internet. And who would get blamed? Us, because we was on the crest of the wave. People woke up one day in 2007 and said, well, what's this thing called the internet? Well, we had been working on it for 10 years. We'd been selling for 7. And a lot of people was just waking up and going, what's going on? Where's my sales? Because it was coupled not only with the surge in the internet, but also the recession that hit them. And there was hundreds of small shops, unfortunately, got caught up in the middle of Amazon, Kiddicare, people like Toys R Us and Mothercare, all kind of fighting for position because everybody was trying to survive. So yeah, I did hit the bottle. If that's in the book, it probably is. I don't know.
It's in the book, yeah.
Yeah, it was, and of course, I had a problem with my back, which normal pills wouldn't touch it, and I had an operation. But the thing was, it was like, yeah, it's crazy times because we're now having to look after so many people, and there came days when there was too many hours in the day and not enough money, so the money would run out at 12 o'clock, and we still got till 5 o'clock to pay the bills, and it was scary, especially when you're talking about millions of pounds. And I remember we paid our rates. We every day I'd have 20 minutes in the accounting department, and with head of accounts, and we would look. This was right in the recession when it was crazy, and we would look at what bills we'd got that needed paying, and to pound really, and what money have we got in the bank. And one of them forgot to tell me that there was 40,000 rates going out that day for the month, because that was what it was £40,000 payable a month on our rates bill. So that's
property tax for Americans who don't know what rates are.
Property tax, yeah, it's insane. And the bank rang and said, you've got till 5 o'clock. This was about 12 o'clock. You got till 5 o'clock to deposit like £1 million, because we'd gone over, and that was a trigger. So that day I borrowed another £2 million, and they charged me a lot of money. They charged me £10,000 for that privilege. So it's scary times. It was. And we actually
probably long overdue for a recession.
Sorry?
What said we're probably long overdue for a recession.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for business owners like us in order to make sure that we're prepared for one?
Well, we had too much stock, too much expensive stock, but at the time we didn't know, because that was what was selling. And if in hindsight, if I'd have known, but it was like 20 weeks to get the stock in. So in other words, you had to order in advance, 20 weeks in advance. And we always kept 3 weeks stock in. But all of a sudden, in the recession, when things went down, we was back up to 23 weeks of stock, what we was holding. We held 3 weeks of stock. And then one day, with the amount of money we was taking, we held 23 weeks of stock. And that is just scary, because, it's coming in every week, and yet you're not selling it. And the product that you are selling, you've got to reorder, and that takes 20 weeks to come in. So you have to sell your higher price stuff at less than cost to survive. And was we going to make people redundant? No, we wasn't, because you remember, they all helped when your times were good. So when times are bad, you keep them on. And one day we'd sold everything we could sell, and at one point we was losing £250,000 a month, and we'd sold a warehouse for 500,000 that kept us going for 2 months. We converted our pension money, which was £3 million, into cash. And, that lasted us a few months. And then the only thing that was left was our home. And I think I touched on it before we went on air. And that's £2.5 million. The estate agent said, well, you get 2.25. I said, no, I need the money now. And put it on the market, sold it for 1.7 million or 1.75, whichever it was, to a buyer with cash. And they moved in the following week. We moved out with our suitcases, and it was a mansion that we lived in, a mega indoor swimming pool, all marble, which had cost us £80,000 to put in. Well, that was 1982. And we walked out with our suitcases with just our clothes, and we left everything else, and we went and moved into our office. So we was living a fantastic life, and we'd been there 26 years, and we found ourselves in the office trying to save 100 and so jobs, and the local authority found out and gave us 21 days to get out, on the streets. And there we was trying to save one of the biggest companies in Peterborough, and they didn't want to know. It didn't tick their box. Anyway, we was there 2.5 years. And then recession faded away. We'd got all our new products. We'd got our own brands, because we was fed up with fighting. And all of a sudden it came back, and we was in profit. And we've got 120 staff now, because when you're selling cheaper stuff, you need more people. Crazy situation when you're selling a pram for £400 as opposed to 1,700. You've got to sell more prams, more cots. We were selling a cot or a crib, as if it's American, a crib for $199 and we needed to make it $99. So therefore, we've got to sell twice as many. Anyway, we did. It was kind of a very, very hard, but looking back, an interesting time, because every time somebody said you can't do this or blamed us for something, we had to think our way around it. And being dyslexic is great, because I say on the front of my book, dyslexia and ADHD has its advantages, to make me succeed. So I think a little bit different to most people, because most people go, well, I can't work out your mind. You think different. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely you definitely went about things in a lot of ways that wouldn't be advised by a lot of people, but it worked well out in the end. So it wasn't long after the recession until you actually decided to sell the business. So could you talk a little bit about what made you want to sell, and how you chose the buyer, and how you went through the process, what you learned that could help us when we come to sell our businesses one day?
Well, I would be looking, am I going forward or am I going backwards? And in business, you want to be going forwards. And I mentioned earlier too, before we went on air, you're either buying your business or you're selling it. So today, every day I used to ask the question to myself at the end of the day, Neville, have you sold your business today, or have you bought it? In other words, am I moving the business forward, or is it stagnant, or is it going backwards? And I always want to sell it, so moving forward. Not literally sell it, but where was we going to go? We was doing £40 million turnover. We had just been through the most horrendous recession and fighting that. We'd lived in the office for 2.5 years. We had mentally and physically been beat to a pulp. We had, and then we'd had a crazy court case where the environmental people took us to court over recycling cardboard, and we'd done it for 30 years. And we'd got all the evidence, all the proof that we'd recycled cardboard. I was fanatical. It was a 40-foot lorry load every week went to the recycling centre, but hadn't filled the fucking form in. And it was like I was guilty because I hadn't applied for a form, I hadn't filled it in, and I hadn't sent it back. And nobody knew about this form. I asked everybody, nobody knew about the form. And it was horrendous. My wife could have committed suicide. She wasn't going to go to court, and it was just dreadful. I had a nervous...
It's happening during the recession when you were trying to save the business, right?
Yeah, and I basically had a nervous breakdown in the court because it was a farce. They said, we don't think you're guilty. And it took 40 minutes for a case which should have been 40 seconds to decide. It's 40 minutes for 3 people to decide, are they guilty or not? And they kept saying, we don't think you're guilty, but I've got to uphold the law. And you didn't fill the form in, so you're guilty, but you're not. But it was crazy, it was, and dreadful. And then you go, okay, where's this business going to go? It's going to go to 200 million. That's what our aim was, because we was always looking 5 years ahead.
And what revenue were you doing then?
We were doing 40 million, and we wanted to make it to 200 million. We'd built the building, we'd put all the systems in, automated systems. It was absolutely great, it was. People could buy in the shop, and they could see on the television their parcel coming from the 4th floor down through the elevators to them at the bottom. 12 minutes from buying to putting your pram or whatever it is in the car, 12 minutes, and they could see their parcel on the screen. And it was fantastic. Did we want to take it? had we got the strength and the want to take it to 200 million. And we was exhausted, and I will say, for people who are building a business, on the long term, you build a small business and it grows, and then you get people in with you to manage and whatever it is, and then you go to the next. You say, we're going to go to the next level. We're going from 5 million to 10 million, and some people can't cope, and things change, and people, and then you have to go from 5 to 10 and get another group of people that gel together and go, now I'm going to 30 million or whatever it may be. And then some people who've been with you for 15 years, they fall in love with somebody, they go abroad, they get divorced, or somebody, they need something else. And there's always this movement about, and we had come to a point where the team had been together for about 15 years, and there was movement in that team. Did Marilyn and I want to take it on to go to 40 million and create a new team all over again? Because this is business, this is what happens. And we didn't. And I had a phone call from somebody who had been phoning me for 5 years. Do you want to sell your business? Do you want to sell your business? And I kept saying, no, it's too exciting. I'm rebuilding this new warehouse. And then I was building another warehouse, and things were too exciting. And that day he caught me just at the time when I should have been in bed. I was feeling dreadfully ill, and I should have been in bed. And I go, I want to get this bloke off their phone. And it was like, yeah, I've got a business to sell, because actually it's working fine. And we're ready now to go up to 40 million. And yes, we will sell, because I'm exhausted and I haven't got that drive that you should have. So there's a time, there's a window of opportunity. We could have gone to 40 million, but it would have meant a lot of hard work, which we was used to, but a lot more than we wanted to do, or we'd got to acquire another business. Well, in that time, in 2009 and 10, there was no good nursery businesses worth buying. There was all for sale. There was none worth buying. So we couldn't hunt for an add-on business like everybody else was doing in the high street, because everybody was, it doesn't matter what product they were selling, there was all the same. We became the hunted, and within a few weeks we got 30 interested parties. The great thing was, and this is when you were building your business as a brand, the great thing was most of the people who was putting the bids in were our customers. They were the CEOs of the big companies that shopped with us for their nursery stuff. They knew the quality, they knew the systems, they knew what they was buying into. And that is, is great, because what could be better? I think somebody brought a razor company, Victor Kiam. He was so impressed. I think he's American. He was so impressed with the product, he bought the company. And this was the advert from the 70s, maybe the 60s. Anyway, Victor Kiam bought the company. So people who was our customers, they wanted to buy our company.
You guys were leaders in online at that point, right? You'd got the ordering and delivery system completely organized, one of the first companies to have a kind of integrated systems. And that's why you were able to sell for such a high amount relative to your revenue and profit, right? Because you had the technology that people wanted. So how did you go about just which buyers did you eliminate? Which ones were you interested in? And how did you eventually pick?
11 venture capitalists. There's 11 who wanted to bid for us of those, so they were out. We didn't want to sell to a venture capitalist.
You thought they might take the company apart and the staff would lose their jobs?
Yeah, we didn't. I didn't feel comfortable. So then there was 3 or 4 who thought they could get it for a steal. That was out. Then there was the people that wanted to bid up to 50 million. So they was out. And then we was left with, I don't know, 9 people. And then it come down to 7, all around the same price. And that was it. So we had done our own due diligence. So instantly people could, we let, I think we probably let the 7 into the due diligence room, you know, so they could see it. The others didn't see it. They didn't. So it was quite simple. We wanted the brand to stay the same. We wanted all the staff to keep their jobs, and we wanted the suppliers to still supply. We had a fantastic business that shouldn't have been altered radically. Should have grown. And I was thinking somebody with 500 massive shops could find room for a kiosk in every shop, or a little kind of a display area with a kiosk, because we used to have 30 kiosks in our shop. So people didn't queue up at the till. They were in the pram department or the cot department or the clothing department, and they used to put the credit card in the kiosk and pay for it. And then 12 minutes later, their goods would be at the back door waiting for them. So it was a kiosk system that I would have thought they'd have put into 500 shops and let the one main warehouse feed out and deliver the next day to all these people. I'm sure they could have doubled within weeks the turnover, but they didn't. They went down a different route.
Cool. So I want to be respectful of your time, Neville. Are you okay to carry on for a couple more minutes?
I'm fine.
Great.
If you was here, I'd take you out for dinner tonight.
Oh, okay. Fantastic.
I'm free. Yeah.
So you sold to one, like to sort of the number 3 or 4 UK supermarket, Morrison's.
Yes.
Because you could see that they had good values, and you could see how, they could maybe just put a little area in their supermarkets, and how they could benefit from the online technology that you had and the expertise that you had in the top of the business.
Yes.
But in practice, did they ever call you to ask for some advice, and they didn't? Both your daughters were still working at the company. How did it turn out?
My daughters had always worked with us. They left school at 13 and they came into the business. And then my son-in-law finished some work in London, and in 2002 came to work on the website, and he'd done some work beforehand when we was building it, and he stopped as a CEO, and one of my daughters stopped. The other one stopped a month and then came and worked with us because she couldn't give value. She felt she couldn't give value to the new company because of the way the company was structured. So
shut her out of the top decision making, right?
She was absolutely brilliant, but had no say. So there's no point in stopping in any company unless you can add value to it. And a lot of people do stop in companies and they can't add value. They'd like to, but they can't, but they still stop there and they're wasting their lives. But that's a different story. That's a different whole podcast, I think. Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to say to you is, maybe it's coming up, I don't know, but your people in your group, I started 2002 doing videos because I wanted to give the customer that was out of reach, so that people who travel an hour, lots of them, 2 hours, quite a few, 3 hours, a few. After that, nobody would travel. So I wanted to give them online an experience like being in on a one-to-one basis. So we started doing videos, not the cartoons that you often see about, they draw the cartoons and they sell the product, but real people. So I had real girls and boys on the shop floor demonstrating the prams and pushchairs and what have you, your sterilizers and things like that. They would demonstrate the products, and they would, if it's a sterilizer, it'd be in the video room, and it would work properly. They'd plug it in and show people how to work it. And that was like being in the shop. There was talking, there was real people, and we had live chat as well. So anybody could, we would video something at the same time as live chat on a one-to-one basis. So we was ahead of ourselves. Whether many people do it now, I mean, we're talking about 17 years ago, and everyone seemed to be, all the big companies seem to be so far behind, and it seemed years to pick it up. But that's what they need to be doing: video in the product, and the person needs to be demonstrating, and there needs to be a live chat about any questions and stuff like that. So, and also people they're concerned about price. I buy a lot of Union Jacks because we've got 140 tenanted commercial properties, and on one of these where there's did I say 40? 140. Yeah, 140 tenanted properties. This is on industrial, not residential, but industrial. And on one of them, with one of these sites, we've got like 30 flags and Union Jacks and on flagpoles, and we have to renew them every 6 months because they rip to pieces in the wind. But instead of looking for these, and I keep buying 50 at a time, I haven't seen anybody selling Union Jacks. There's thousands of people do on Amazon, or thousands. There's a lot of people do. Maybe not thousands, maybe 10. I don't know. But there's nobody with a video saying, look at this Union Jack. This is this, you can use it once or twice, and then for $2.99 you just throw it away. But this one, if you want to keep it 2 years, it's 10 times as much. But realise you don't have to keep employing somebody to climb up the flagpoles or the cherry picker and put new flags on. I would rather spend £20 on one flag and know it's going to be good for 3 years than $2.99 and keep sending my men up on a cherry picker to change 30 flags every 6 months. But so people don't always want the cheapest, but they want to know, they want something that's probably not there. It's like it is there, but nobody's telling us. You need to get out, or people need to get out and video and tell people, just like they were in front of them, just like a salesperson would explain. And I see a lack of that. Whether they can do it on Amazon, I don't know, but they certainly do the cartoons, the line drawings with a voiceover.
Yeah, it's getting easier to put videos on Amazon if you are a particular type of seller with a certain account. So what do you think, as people selling physical products in 2019, that we need to be thinking about for the next 5-10 years? What do you think we need to be focusing on? What tips have you got?
Well, the high street's definitely going, and it's been going and going and going, and I just feel there is a need for good niche products that I like, the coffee machine, that you've got to be able to sell it much than just putting a picture on there. The picture's no good anymore. It never was in 2002. The picture and the price is no good. You need an online salesperson. Everybody is buying more and more from the internet. I mean, we do all the time. So it's going to increase. And with that increase, where are you going to go as a business? How are you going to differentiate yourself? What are you buying in? Are you buying a range for a one-stop? Like, you'd only go to Kiddicare because you knew you could buy what you wanted. You've got all your brands, all your well-known brands, and then you've got sub-brands which were ours. People didn't know there was ours, but they had our guarantee. So therefore, you'd got lots of brands. It was in stock. You didn't have to wait, and it wasn't the cheapest that people was looking for. They was looking for a product they could buy, a guarantee, a company that was that they trusted because of all of the recommendations from the 100,000 customers. So, you know, we was open, was absolutely transparent with our reviews, and we looked after those people. As I say about the reviews, we sorted them out. So therefore, we had a lot of reviews saying I was unhappy, but actually, out of the blue, when I put this on, I got it sorted, and I didn't think I would. So the customer service has got to be above expectations, because I've been talking about customers, and the American people who's probably looking on will understand. I never ever wanted a customer after I'd read Ken Blanchard's book about raving fans. I didn't want a customer anymore. I wanted a raving fan, and that's all I wanted, because a raving fan will tell hundreds of people about your products and your service. So that's what we aimed for. That was our goal, to get raving fans. And how could we do that? But I do believe also we wasn't selling, we were selling a whole range. And what you don't get now, we were selling a cot. So we're selling lots of cots, 1,000 cots a week we were selling in 2010. So people would buy a cot off one website, they get it home and they go, oh, I didn't realize it didn't come with a mattress. But with ours, there was the cot, and there's 6 accessories down the side relating to that. There was the mattress, the bedding, whatever the thing that goes around to keep the baby or make the baby go to sleep. So it was like, you don't see it. You see a cot for sale, but you need the accessories. You need to think like a customer. The customer's going to buy a cot. What for? For the baby. The baby needs a mattress. The mattress needs some blankets. The blankets need, you need a thing to go around the top to take it to sleep. And then each of those products, if you clicked on them, had 6 more products related to them. So, and it went round in a big circle. So you would, you could buy everything, and it reminded people. So related products, don't let the customer go away with one product when you know they need 6 products. And this is, people are not doing it. They're not putting themselves into the salesperson's perspective and the customer's perspective. They're going to China, grabbing something and thinking, oh, this will sell. Oh, it's a good markup on this. We'll forget about the markup. That was a byproduct of getting all these raving fans in. It's a byproduct. The money that at the end of the day was, because it was going to be there, because we was marrying up the customer with what they wanted, and they didn't even know what they wanted. They'd come in and they'd go, I haven't got a flipping clue. Not a clue, because it's our first baby. I need somebody to tell us what we need. You come to the right place, you know, and that's what it's all about. Coming to the right place with the right product and the right attitude, and then everything else follows.
Cool. Okay, so we do a few question and answers for the members. So guys, if you just want to type your questions in a box, and then we'll come to them when we get to your turn. So one question I had submitted in advance was, if you were going to start again from scratch in business today, what would you do?
Well, what can a dyslexic do who dances about, can't keep still? You know, I've got to do something physical. So I've got to build something. I've got to build a business. All right, okay. And what are my talents? Well, I didn't have any talents. I'd had 17 jobs, and I didn't realize that I'd actually learned anything until somebody said, can you do this? Can you do that? And I built that business. So what would I do? I think I would get more people in. I say I'll get more people involved quicker, but that's on hindsight, because I'd never employed anybody. You know, I was unemployable, and now I was needing to employ people. So it's a job to say I would do anything different. I wouldn't. I probably would bring more people in who were more skilled than me quicker. You know, because I used to try and do plumbing jobs or electrical jobs in the 1970s, which you could. But nowadays, you know, I would have the brains to go, well, actually, I can't do that in that time. I will get somebody else to do it. So I would bring more people in with more skills than I'd got. And I would focus on what I was good at, which was organising and helping, rather than trying to do the whole of the job myself. So that's what I would do. I'd be a bit more wiser in that way, and maybe I'd have made a success of the business.
One of the things you talk about in the book is being 1% better than the competition.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's like a psychological thing, as in like the bar's not like way up there. The bar's just, all I've got to do is just become like really achievable, just slightly better than my competition. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I learned years and years. I can't get this timeline up, by the way, if you can get it up. I learned years and years after I was doing it that there's something called the Kaizen method. One small step at a time. And I didn't realize I'd been doing this for years, because I used to work on a minute-to-minute basis of what can I do? Now what can I do? What can the people around me, you know, we renovated 100 houses, 100 terrace houses in the 70s and 80s while we was on the retail side as well, but we was renovating houses as well with a team of people, and that we used to go in, and it was a minute-to-minute basis, 6 weeks in a house, and it was turned round. So I was using the Kaizen method of one small step at a time, and it's the same in any business. Are you going forward? I mean, you might go backwards because, you know, you make mistakes, and that's life. Don't dwell on them. Just keep on going, and don't do less of what doesn't work and more of what works. So, yeah, just keep on going. I forgot the question.
It was about being 1% better than the competition, right?
Yeah.
You think you got there by just making small incremental improvements all the time?
I'll give you an example. My father taught me, and it's in the book, Ig Piala Garam Cha, 1 cup of hot tea. And he learned this in India when he was out there and in the war. And so it was like people used to drag you into their shop and give you a cup of tea. The hotter the better, because the longer you would be. The longer you was in the bazaar, you know, in their little shop, the more friendly you would become towards the person who'd give you the cup of tea. Right. So if you've been, say, a couple who was pregnant and they'd been around on a Saturday to Toys R Us, to Mothercare, to Tesco's, to wherever, and all the independent pram shops they could possibly find, and they come into ours expecting us to say, can I help you? No, I'm just looking, thanks very much. They go, do you want a cup of tea? And they go, what? They go, and the bloke would say, how much is it? No, it's free. It's free, you know. And then they go, oh, I don't know. And they look at the missus and they go, do you want a cup of tea? Well, I don't know. I do want one. And they go, if they've got kids, they say, do you want some biscuits and orange juice? And they go, yeah, can we, mum? And it's like, it was all free. And there was hot chocolate and there was tea and there was coffee and there was soup and there was biscuits, and it was free. Now, if all the prices were the same, and you'd been to all of those people that I just mentioned, and somebody offered you a cup of tea, where would you buy? And you was going to buy your pram or your cot or whatever it is, where would you buy it from?
Yeah, the guy who gave you the tea. It's just a little tiny little thing that makes you just a tiny little bit better.
Yeah. Right, I could tell you whether somebody was going to go bust in the high street, starting up, or somebody was going to make a go of it. I could tell you whether I was afraid of this competition or I wasn't. I go into their shop, and in those days they didn't have barcodes. They had a gun, and they used to put sticky labels with a price on. And if you saw in our shop, the sticky label with the price was on the right-hand side at the top. Everything, you know, unless there was some vital name that it was, and you had to come down a little bit, but it was always right-hand side. That was the law. That was another one of my laws, and it's got to be straight. Now you go into some shops, you can't find the ticket, and it's upside down, and it's round on the back. People are not interested in what they're doing. You knew that shop wouldn't survive, because if they wasn't interested in putting the label on straight and in one place so people could see it instantly, they didn't care. If they didn't care about that, they didn't care about their rubbish bins or their toilets. They didn't care about anything. And that was 1% better. It's the little things. Sorry, I'm rabbiting on.
I've got a question from Ben. Neville, what were your biggest hiring mistakes?
Oh, yeah. Well, salespeople who smelt. You couldn't, you know, these people are together. They've got to be close together in a close proximity, you know, you know, BO is probably better than nothing, or halitosis is better than being dead, but it wasn't good enough, you know, and having to train somebody that they shouldn't smell, you know, that was just a practical thing, because it scared customers off, and all we wanted was customers to buy product from us. And hiring mistakes, people who thought they were too good to help people, or we used to have this thing, and people used to have to pass this test, right? Are you willing to clean the toilets? And if people go, yeah, I want a job. Okay, right. As long as you can clean them better than anybody else, you'll never have to do it. But you've got to prove for the first few weeks you can do it. And can you make a cup of tea? If you are too above that kind of thing, then you're going to be too above everything else. You're not going to be get on your knees with the little kids that come in, and because actually, if you can talk to the kids, the mum and dad will buy. And if they're, you know, too high, a lot of people with letters behind their names, I've got the certificate, but they don't care. And it's when people know how much you care, that's one of the greatest things in business. If I know you care, then I will buy off you. And one of the other laws was, you got to act and you got to present as you could say to somebody, go and pick anything you want, give me a blank check, and I will write the check out for you with the amount. In other words, you trust me. I will make it the best price that I can. And you've got to have that trust. Mentally, you've got to feel that that person can give you a check and you'll write it out and they will be happy. Because you have fitted the right product to their circumstances. You have, that's what you've done. You're taking care of them.
Great. So you're looking for people that aren't full of themselves, people that you can.
What did Ben say? Sorry, what did Ben say?
We're talking about hiring. So you asked what your biggest hiring mistakes were, and you said smelly people bad, trustworthy people good.
I do. Yes, hiring. I don't know, people who just think they're better, and they're not. We're all the same. And if you think you're better and you look down at people, and that's the worst hiring mistakes I think I've made. People who think they're better than everybody else, and there's no room for them. There isn't. So not in our company, but they were the worst hiring mistakes. Yeah.
Great. Okay, Neville, I think we'll call it a day there. Thanks so much for being so generous with your time.
You're welcome.
For everyone watching this, you can search on Audible or Amazon, Neville Wright. The answer is yes. It'll pop right up. So yeah, I really learned a lot from it. I learned a lot about practically how to go about building a business, but also like if I wanted to build a mega business with a lot of teams, with a big team, what the cost I would have to pay, the sacrifices necessary to create a particular type of business. So it actually really helped me to think about what kind of business I want to build, and the things I'm willing to do and the things I'm not willing to do. So for example, like I know that I don't want a team bigger than about 5 or 6 local people working in the office. Like that's what I will enjoy. I'll enjoy that family feel. And then I wouldn't enjoy the responsibility of having too many more. So just the fact that I could learn from all that experience for the price of one Audible credit was just absolutely fantastic. Because you're just so honest with the good and the bad and absolutely everything that happened. So I really learned a lot from it. Thanks. I really recommend it to everyone.
Thank you very much.
Cool. All right. So I will just stop the recording.